Well, Michael, early stages, but mixed fortunes, I suppose, so far. How do you view the season so far?
Yeah, it's very early, very, very early. We were disappointed last week, obviously, on Saturday to not come away with the result we wanted, but played against a good team and well organised and didn't surprise us. We just couldn't quite come out on top on the day. We lacked a bit of sharpness, that little bit of extra that we know we've got and we're capable of, and probably showed that a little bit more on Tuesday night. So we're just finding our kind of top level and looking for that peak performance really at this stage. And obviously results are important, hugely important, but at the same point we're trying to build something. So we're looking forward to the weekend, see where we're at with that.
At the same time, the next 3 weeks, obviously you'll have a much better idea how the squad is going to look come the closure of the transfer window. A distracting time for a manager?
No, not at all. No, not distracting. I think we're pretty clear, and I'm pretty clear of the responsibility and the roles and what we need to do. So it's not distracting. It's the role, it's the job. Just got to make the best of it.
And obviously you've been linked with various positions: left back, striker, Engel, Lat. I mean, can you enlighten us as to how close you might be getting to any replacements?
We're trying to obviously strengthen the squad, and like you just touched on, that's the job at the moment. That's the time of year we're in, even though the season started. So we're pushing for it. Obviously, as soon as something happens, we'll let you know. But until then, at the moment, there's nothing to quite report.
Would you say the striker position's the hardest to fill in the Championship?
It was the hardest, not necessarily. I think it depends what you're after. Depends. A lot depends on how specific you are with what you want from each position. To be honest, if sometimes you might be a little bit more general in terms of what strengths of players you want. Other times when you're a little bit more specific, obviously that filters the market quite a bit. So, and it's never as simple and as easy as to just go and identify totally who you want and make that happen, because there's a lot of moving parts. So we know that. We're patient to a point, but we're conscious that certain things need done as well.
If you get sort of largely what you're hoping for or what you want, and before the end of August, I mean, will you be pretty upbeat for the season?
I'm upbeat now. I really am. I think we've got some really good talent within the group. We got some good experience within the group. I'm really upbeat. I'm looking forward to the season. We just need to come out with the next few weeks in a better place than what we're going into it. But at the same point of that, I'm really looking forward to what's ahead.
Words like revenge tend to be used by people like us rather than people like you. But does that, the fact that Coventry beat you in the playoffs and you went really, really close to getting to the final, I mean, does that have any extra incentive for the players, do you think, who were involved?
Listen, what's done. There's you can't retrieve it. They got to Wembley, and unfortunately for themselves didn't quite get over the line at Wembley. But we can't go back in time. What we can do is try and learn from the game and look at it and think what we could have done better. And obviously playing against them now, a few different players, tweaking the system. But it's both teams are the same managers, so we'll go head to head again and look forward to the challenge.
And given where both clubs, Millwall and Coventry, finished last season, I suppose it represents a fairly tough start, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I think it's a tough league. I think I spoke about that last week before the start of the season. I think it's a tough league. Good teams coming up, good teams that have came down. That's a challenge. That's why it's such an entertaining league and an exciting league. That's why we're looking forward to it.
Toughest for a while, do you think, the Championship this year?
I think it's tough to say. I think almost every year someone says it's the toughest league, this one. So maybe it is, maybe it's not. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. It's up to us to be good enough to be finishing close to the top for start.
But in terms of what you did last season, do you think the lads have learned quite a lot from that and can take that into this campaign?
I'm sure they have. Yeah, I'm sure they have. As a group, it feels like I've been here an awful long time, and actually this is the first full season. So as a group, we'll definitely be better for sharing that experience last year. We just got to build on that. And
just one well before your time, obviously, but a League Cup tie against Bolton, which obviously brings back many happy memories for Older Borough fans back in 2004. Will that be quite a useful tie to sort of test the range of the squad you've got, the depth of the squad?
It's a useful tie because it's the next one in the cup, and we're looking forward to trying to go through. When we get to that point, there's obviously a balance between, and I think it's pretty obvious teams have used the cup to balance the squad, and to do that. We kind of done that to a point, but really it's about trying to go through in the cup. We'll look forward to that. We'll respect Bolton, but we'll go down and looking forward to the game.
Hi Michael. That game against Huddersfield, we saw particularly the third goal with Ryan McGree and that link up with Morgan Rogers, that little dummy. We saw Sammy Silvera score. How are you finding that the new arrivals are settling in?
Yeah, the boys have settled in well. Very well. They're obviously finding their feet, and we're asking them to do certain things and got to fit into the structure of across that front line. But I think the most important thing almost is the fit into the group straight away is with the personality and the character, and respectful but working hard, and that's really, really important if you're talking about long term. The performances, yeah, of course, we all like to look at the performance. We want to be at our best, and that'll come in time. I'm sure it will, and hopefully it'll come pretty quick. But I'm delighted with all the new arrivals, if you like, have settled in, and they've all showed promise in their own way.
And that game against Huddersfield, obviously having that cup game midweek, is it good for momentum to have a game midweek where you can just carry that winning feeling into the weekend?
Yeah, I'm quite happy playing games every few days. I think it's when you've got a good squad and you've got a good group of players, and there's no better feeling than playing football games rather than training. As much how nice a place this is and how much we enjoy the training, I think we're all here to play games. So and obviously trying to go as far as we can in the cup competitions. I think that's the challenge in front of us, and have that emotion and that enjoyment within the game for us and for the fans. So wins help, obviously, in terms of energy levels and freshness, and everyone looking forward to the next game. So we need to keep that rolling.
And playing Coventry, obviously the way the season panned out at the end of last term, you ended up playing Coventry 3 times on the bounce. So you've played them more as a manager than any other team. Has it been different every time?
Has it been different? It was really close together, to be honest, and it was in the end the games were pretty similar, pretty tight. Not loads of chances either end, and they're so well organised and defend very, very well as having a threat on the break. So they still do that, and they've added to the game as well. So yeah, be a good game, good challenge for us.
Both in terms of the way you've seen your teams come together in that opening game of the season, and in terms of like the opening weekend more broadly, how you've seen the other teams perform. Has that changed your expectation of what to expect from this season?
No, to be honest. I think the first few weeks of a season, anyway, don't always give you the true picture of what it's going to end up come Christmas time and after Christmas. I think for many different reasons, teams are at different stages. Some have got the full squad settled, some are still trying to do business, and some tend to start the season really sharp. And I think, when we're 10, 12 games in at least, then you can start getting a picture of that, and what the league's looking like, what type of football's being played, who's playing what. I think over the first week or so, it's very difficult to judge.
That's great, thank you, Michael.
Peppers? Injuries first. I mean, Tuba and Josh, how near are they to potentially being able to start within the weeks training under the belt? Yeah,
they won't start now. They've not had enough training, to be honest. They've both missed quite a lot, and building it up. So it's not the time of year to be pushing. If it was the end of the season, if it was the last game, it would be different. Would it be in the first game of the season? It's very different. So nevertheless, they're pushing hard to be fit as soon as the boys can.
Just on Tuba, I mean, obviously there was the Sky reports yesterday that a bid had been turned down. To what extent are you involved in that? Like, to what extent do you have a say about what happens with Tuba, or to what extent is that now a kind of Steve, Neil, Kieran decision?
That's a club. On any decision, really, it's a club. We're all in it together, regardless of who it's about. it's part of what's best for the first team squad all the time. Then I'm involved in that decision. So it's kind of how it works.
And last one on transfers. I understand why you don't want to go into specifics, but the Danish media are reporting that Engel is here having a medical. Can you say anything on that?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious where things are progressing with Lucas. It's always difficult when it's it's not kind of over the line, but it is getting a little bit closer. So we're hopeful at some point soon that'll get done. Yeah.
And not quite transfers. Last one on that world, I promise you. Josh Coburn. I mean, has a decision been made yet about whether he stays here, certainly for the first half of the season, or loans, or is that a bit dependent on other cogs falling into it?
It's a little bit dependent. I think we've got a pretty clear idea. We have definitely got a clear idea of what the plan is for Josh and what we would want it to look like. There is a couple of ifs and buts in that, as you'd expect at this stage. But yeah, we've certainly got a plan, and hopefully it'll play out like that.
When we talk about the week and the kind of new lads and the bedding in and everything, I mean, Sammy obviously had a good pre-season, played a fair bit, got goals, etc. But just how important is it for someone like that who's come from the other side of the world to kind of get that competitive start, get that goal, and really hit the ground running?
In some ways, it's the ideal way. Yeah, of course. To get involved, to look sharp, and score. Yeah, fantastic. I think it's not a surprise. Kind of this week, I think it's in pre-season in general, he's looked really good, settled really quickly. Some kind of hit the ground running and are flying straight away. Others, takes a bit of time to kind of look, settle and hit top gear. That's footballers, that's form, that's kind of that's something that we got to judge and help them with. But I must say, and repeat what I kind of did before, of all the boys who have came in have settled well in their own way, and Sammy's obviously caught the eye because of his goals, and he scored over pre-season, and he plays that way where he has moments where he kind of catches your eye. So we're delighted to have him. He's a great lad. He's desperate to learn and improve, and I'm sure there's much more to come from him.
And obviously you started the league season with Marcus and Riley in the kind of wider positions, but in Sammy and Isaiah you've got two players who right from the word go are going to be pushing them for a place, aren't they, which clearly is what you want.
No, it's fantastic. That's exactly what we want, and game to game it might change, and it doesn't mean we fall out with an individual player because he might not be involved or he might not start the game this week. So for me personally, I see the game in the second half as planning for that just as much as who starts the game. I think it's so important how you finish the game, and it's getting more and more important within that. So there's almost a plan to start and a plan to finish, and it doesn't always obviously pan out that way. Goals change games in different scenarios, but I think to have that flexibility in the especially in forward areas to try and change the course of a game, and we're lucky enough that the majority of the group of forwards we have can play a number of the positions as well as playing each position differently, if that makes sense. So that's the balance, that's the juggling that we need, and as I say, just because one might not start one week doesn't mean all of a sudden he's out of favour, because I think that's the beauty of having the strength and depth to choose from for us, that we can hopefully make the best of each week.
Just on the back of that, Michael, I mean, with how it went on Tuesday night and the positives that you can take from it, would it be fair to say that those that did come in have offered food for Saturday's day? Yeah,
definitely. No surprises, to be honest, in terms of what we know the boys can do and are capable of doing. So no surprises from that, but it is good to see the boys playing well and looking sharp, and it's exactly what we want. We want all the boys to be firing, as I said, and that competition is healthy because it pushes you on. I was kind of used to it as a player for many years at United, and I was fortunate enough to be in that position where it kept me on my toes, and I really enjoyed the competition and the club bringing another midfielder in for instance in my position, because it kind of spurred me on to keep pushing for more, and we're trying to create that environment where it's not about the individuals, it's about the group, and at the moment they're all, it's a great place to be. Even though we haven't started the season in terms of tip-top form, I'm sure over time we'll keep building and keep growing.
Yeah, and you talk about the flexibility within, particularly the forward line within the squad. I mean, are you somebody who, while that flexibility is important, you'd like kind of players to kneel down positions, or is that flexibility good in terms of, you're happy to move people about when it suits?
I think it just depends on the individual really and what the strengths are. And as I said, we're fortunate enough that a lot of the players playing up there can play a number of positions across the front. So there's the freedom, there's that freedom and expression that we say to the boys to go and believe and trust yourself, but there's obviously a plan behind it and you've got to kind of stick to the structure and the plan. And because they can play different positions but have different strengths, then it's up to us to kind of make the best of each game where we think we'll get the benefits from.
And just finally for me on the injury front, Alex missed out the other night. I think he said hand injuries. How's he for the weekend?
Yeah, he should be in and around it again. Yeah, he's had a few scans and we're hoping that it's not as bad as it could have been. So at the moment we're still waiting, but we're hopeful that he'll be in and around it for the weekend. Yeah.
And is there any update yet on Tommy Smith and Anthony Dijksteel and their injury?
They'll be a little bit further away. Yeah.